Hi everyone, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, June 8th, 2023, and this is episode 257. My name's Carol. I'm known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, where it is hot and kind of smoky today. We have a couple of wildfires burning about 35 kilometers from here. I think that's about 25 miles or so. And woke up about the night before last, I guess it was. I could smell the smoke in the air. And since then, there's been a haze that has settled everywhere, and we've been issued an air quality advisory. So I've closed all the windows, and I am relying on a fan over there in the corner of the room to help keep me cool. So hopefully the microphone doesn't pick up the sound of it. I think it's pretty quiet. I'm hoping it'll be okay. This is going to be a fairly quick episode, I think, but I do have one finished project and several new cast-ons that I wanted to share with you this week. Before I do, just a reminder, there are a couple of make-alongs taking place in the Ravelry group. The first is a year-long chatter thread called Another Year of Stash, and there's also a monthly make-along called the Yarn of the Month Club. So if you're interested in taking part, head on over to the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group, check out the first post in each of the pertinent threads, and jump on in. I would love to see you there. And as always, a big thank you to everyone who is taking part currently or has at some point in the past. I appreciate your participation. All right, my Clupea socks. Oh, I just had a thing come up on the screen that the air quality statement has ended. That is good news. There is a bit of a breeze outside, and I'm hoping that it will blow all the smoke away. I guess it's dissipated it enough to make a difference. And we are expecting a bit of rain tomorrow, so that should help too. So that's good news. Anyway, my Clupea socks. These have been one of my more challenging projects, and it all has to do with the yarn. I love this yarn. It is called Artfeel Belle, and the colorway of the main sock is Rabbit Hole, and then I used a coordinating mini skein called Cabernet for the heels and toes. The problem is the yarn did not knit up as I expected it to. I was all set just to make a pair of my usual plain stockinette socks, and I thought the yarn would kind of micro stripe or blend very pleasantly. And then I ended up with the first attempt, all the gold on one side of my sock and all the purple on the other. And some people don't mind large areas of pooling. I really don't care for them. So the hunt was on for the magic stitch count, needle size, and pattern. And I ended up settling on Clupea by Very Busy Monkey. And it did the trick, but not without a little bit of help. After working the gusset decreases, I ended up joining in yarn from the other end of the ball and alternating sort of 6 rows of each color, which is the equivalent of half a pattern repeat, and just to keep the striping kind of going on the foot. And in the end, I have to say, you know, I'm happy with how these have turned out. I probably would have been happier if I had just been able to knit the socks I had envisioned, but all in all, I really can't complain. They fit well. I'm glad I didn't make the legs any longer than I did, because they do just sort of fit at the height that they are at before my calf muscle expands, and but they fit fine in the foot. I had one viewer ask whether or not the 72 stitch count that I used for these socks would be too big on my feet because I normally do a 64 stitch sock. But as it turned out, because of the chevron pattern on the top of the foot, they ended up, that pulled in the yarn in plenty enough to make the foot fit well. So it's a lot of talking about it, so why don't I bring it in a little bit closer and you can see. So this pattern features alternating stripes of stockinette stitch and garter stitch. There's a traditional heel flap and gusset, and I didn't even look at the instructions for the toe. I just did my usual rounded toe, and I chose to do complementary heels and toes, but the pattern is pictured with all one yarn. So you will notice perhaps that the socks are slightly different. The yarn saturation on this, this was my first sock, it is definitely deeper than on the second sock, which appears a little bit more faded, but they're obviously a matched set, and it doesn't bother me. So I made it my goal earlier this week to finish this pair up. I just really wanted to be done with them, put them to bed, so to speak. This was the fourth yarn from my personal sock yarn club that I put together for myself this year. I was so excited when I drew it out, and it, as I said, just proved to be more challenging than I expected to work with. So I am happy to have a functional, perfectly lovely pair of socks knit from this yarn, and now I can put them away and move on to something else. So why don't I show those to you? I did open this yarn last episode while I was recording, so you've had a preview of it. It is Cooper's Hawk. It's from Fiber Nymph Dyeworks. See, that label's kind of shining there. This was part of the second edition of the Backyard Birdwatchers Club, and this came in September of 2022. So we got a skein of self-striping. It's a 4-stripe colorway. And then it also came with 2 coordinating 20-gram mini skeins. So I've got lots of yarn to knit up here. My plan is to make a pair of socks for myself and also attempt to make a pair of socks for my husband. His legs will end up a bit shorter than usual, than I usually knit them, but he said that would be fine. When I got this yarn, I thought I might knit it up for him, but then I really wanted socks from it for myself too. That's part of the fun of the club. But I think I'll be able to squeeze 2 pairs out of it, since I have those 2 generous mini skeins. So rather than do just a plain stockinette sock, I decided to do Heel Toe Do-Si-Do by Kate Litton. That she is the Crazy Sock Lady and has a podcast on YouTube. It's hard to tell. I've done, I think, 1 or 2 pattern repeats, but you can't really see the effect of that yet. So I've done 3 stripes for the cuff, and I've just barely started the leg. But that gives you an idea of the 4 colors and how they're going to knit up. I like that the stripes are not all the same size. And then I have cast on the second sock, but I've only done like this much. Still, it's a start. These socks are just gonna be whenever I feel like working on them. There's no timeline. When I finish working on these, then I'll open up bag number 6 from my personal sock yarn club. I had sort of had it in the back of my mind that I would do a pair a month, but I am a month behind and I don't care. It's fine. The whole purpose of doing the personal sock yarn club for me is that often when it's time for me to cast on a new pair of socks, I kind of get paralyzed by choice. And so this is a way of sort of forcing a pair on me. And what I often also find is that I end up not knitting some of the yarns I really want to knit for whatever reason. So this way, you know, I can just, it's, the decision's taken out of my hands. Most of my choices for this year were club colorways that I received from Fiber Nymph Dye Works and from Sweet Fiber. And speaking of Sweet Fiber, I am using some yarn from the Spring 2023 Sweet Fiber Sock Club for my another pair of socks. And I also talked about these socks last week. It is the, so I'm just looking for my yarn label. They are the Feather Vein Socks by Helen Stewart of Curious Handmade, and this is the second pattern in this year's Handmade Sock Society. So there's the Sweet Fiber label. It's a super sweet sock in the Electric Daffodil colorway. And man, is this yarn bright. Do not adjust your set. It really is that bright. I was debating whether to, because the theme is, the name of the pattern is Feather Vein Socks, so reference to birds. I was trying to decide which bird I might want my socks to represent, and I was debating between stellars, jays, or cardinals, or goldfinches. I didn't have anything quite right in my stash for a stellar's jay. I don't actually have cardinals where I live, but right now the goldfinches are regularly visiting our feeder, or feeders, I should say. So I decided to knit these as a tribute to the goldfinches. And you know, I thought, are they really that bright a yellow? And in some lights, they actually are, but not all lights. I happened to spot one just a little while ago, and it very conveniently flew to a perch by our hummingbird feeder on our lower deck, and I was able to get a lovely photograph of it. So this is the male American goldfinch. The females are kind of an olivey green. Anyway, here's my start. I am a couple of repeats in. Like most Helen Stewart patterns, it's not too difficult, and but enough interest to, you know, keep your interest until you don't get too bored. So in this case, this lace and cable pattern just runs down the front of the sock, and then the back is just plain. So you get sort of half a rest row every round. So I like that kind of sock. So yeah, they're definitely bright, but they're fun and cheerful, and an homage to one of my favorite feeder birds, the goldfinch, the American goldfinch to be more exact. I'm just gonna take a drink here for a second. It's all dripping on my dress here because it's that warm and there's a lot of condensation on the outside of that glass. Finally, I have my June Yarn of the Month Club project to show you. It took me a long time to make up my mind which yarn to choose and what to make with it. And I came very close to casting on a different yarn and pattern yesterday, but this one just kept calling to me. So first I'll show you the yarn. It is from Smith and Ewe, E-W-E. It's called Mary Ann's Bliss. And it is in the Peacock Gradient. So this yarn is dyed with kind of like speckles, but they get more concentrated as you move through the skein. I bought this yarn, well, I see on the price tag it says 0616, which gives me a clue that maybe it was even as far back as 2016. I know I've had it for a while. I bought it from a yarn shop in Kamloops, British Columbia, which sadly I don't think is any longer in business. And I think they had I think they might have had a shawl knit up in this yarn. Anyway, it caught my eye, but it's just been sitting there. So I put it aside as one of my yarns of the month. And this feels like a little bit of a cop-out because I've already knit this pattern this year for my March Yarn of the Month Club, but I am doing Secret Skein once again. This is a fantastic cowl pattern by Stephanie Lotvin. She is Telly Bean Knits. It is just a really nice bandana style cowl, which is very simple to knit, very drapey, very effective. I really loved the first one I knit, and I decided that rather than do a shawl, I thought I would find this a more useful project. So I have done sections 1 through 3, I think. Yes, and now I'm about to reach section 4, which is the remainder of the cowl, which is this elongated stitch pattern. So the beginning of the skein had this concentrated area, and that's what's going to sit here. And then you can see it gets much less concentrated after that. So the beginning part of this cowl are these stripes of stockinette separated by eyelets. Then it moves in this transition period into some garter stitch. And then the remainder of the cowl is garter stitch and the elongated stitches. So I'm well on my way. It's just been a very enjoyable pattern so far, and no doubt I will knit this up quickly because I just don't really want to put it down. And that's okay. Now, I still have not finished my May Yarn of the Month Club project, which is the Ondas blouse. I haven't touched it since I last recorded. Or that's not true. I have added length to the body. That's right. I have added length to the body, but I need to try it on again with my camisole and see where the length is hitting. And I just haven't really had a chance. And then the last few days have been really hot and uncomfortable, and the thought of putting on a camisole and a mohair sweater just did not appeal to me at all. So once the weather cools down and I have a little bit more time on my hands, that I'm going to try that on and decide what I'm going to do at the bottom. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying June's Yarn of the Month Club yarn. I only cast it on yesterday, and look how much I've done already. In fact, I was tempted to just knit some more today and record either later or tomorrow, but my wrist was bothering me, and I thought that's a sign you need to put down those knitting needles and do something else. So that's what I'm doing. And it actually worked out really well because not long before I sat down to record, my nephew's wife contacted me to see if I would look after my new great niece later today. And of course I said yes, so I'm just waiting to hear back from her with details. But that timing all worked out perfectly. So that is it for the knitting. I don't have any plans to cast on anything else at the moment. I didn't purchase any yarn or anything craft related this week, so we'll just moved into what's going on in my life. So last weekend, I remember saying I was going to just knit all day Saturday. It didn't quite turn out that way. We sort of put together an impromptu get together for our family to celebrate our older son's 36th birthday. He turned 36 on Sunday, but he already had plans for his actual birthday. And so our family just got together for happy hour on Saturday afternoon, and my older sister and her husband joined us, and it was just great. We all brought, provided some sort of snack, and we were able to sit outside, enjoy the sunshine and the breeze. And unfortunately, Cameron was out of town working, but he did arrive back home in time to just see our daughter and her husband briefly before they left to go to another commitment. And then the grandkids stayed a little bit longer before our older granddaughter took them home. So he got to see everyone, just not the whole time. On Sunday, we participated in a golf tournament that was organized through our curling club. So we curled with our skip that we have on Monday nights, and then another man that we know from curling. He's a drywaller. He owns a drywalling company, and he actually did some drywall work for us a few years ago. So we had a lot of fun. The weather was perfect. We teed off at 8:30, and it was sunny but not hot, and we finished before it started to get too warm. And then we headed back to the curling club where they had a barbecue and some prizes. So very enjoyable morning and early afternoon, and then we had the rest of the day just to relax. Saturday I had ended up going grocery shopping and things like that, so all the jobs were out of the way, and knowing that everyone was coming over later, I had done some housework, so yeah, there were just no jobs to take care of on Sunday. It was really nice. Let me see, I'm just gonna look at my notes here. Oh yes, well, Cameron is away again. He left, I've lost track of time. Yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, yes. And then he comes back Friday for a few days before heading away again, and then he's kind of back and forth for a little while yet. He's coming back this weekend because it's the mid-season tournament for his ball team. That'll be on Saturday and Sunday. Hopefully by then the smoke will have dissipated even more. The weather's supposed to be pretty reasonable, like I think sort of low to mid 20s, so that should be really good. And then we are hosting the team on Saturday night for a barbecue, so that'll be fun to have everybody over here. We've been hosted one of those for I think a few years now. Well, I guess part of it because we had ball last year, but we didn't have a barbecue here ourselves. I'm trying to think, because COVID of course changed everything, and every time I think of it, like, we got to think of a couple of years that got skipped. We often will have a get together every 1 or 2 years here for the team, but we haven't for a few years now, so that'll be fun. I think that's it for now as far as what's going on, but something good is coming up, and that is that a date has been set for Cameron's surgery that he needs, and that will be on the 26th of June. So he will, it's a minor surgery, but he will need a little bit of recuperation time, so he's taking off the whole following week, and that ties into our Canada Day long weekend. So he'll have a full week to recover before he heads back to work. So glad to be able to get that all taken care of. He was just saying the other day, I wish I could get a date so I could organize my life. It's been a little trickier with him having to work out of town so much in the last couple of months, but he's got everything now worked out for that. Another good thing is coming up next Saturday is our older granddaughter's graduation ceremony, her commencement ceremony. So we are looking forward to attending that. He is able to be back for that before turning around and heading out of town again. Before I say goodbye, I want to thank Jen from Honeybird Studio for mentioning me on her latest episode. She put together a list of 8 Canadian podcasts that she was currently enjoying, and I was honored to be included on that list. So thank you, Jen. Jen is another British Columbian knitter and designer and podcaster, and she doesn't live too far from me. So I recommend that you check out her YouTube channel. I will leave a link for that in the show notes. All right, that is it for this episode. So thank you as always for watching. Thank you for all of your comments and messages and participation in the make-alongs. I truly appreciate it. Have yourselves a wonderful week, and I hope to talk to you again very soon. Take care till then. Bye.